Well, don't plan on tidying up the leaves from the garden first thing tomorrow morning because it's going to be a pretty windy old start. There'll be just as many down by the end of the day. Severe gale.
Well, you know, as we look at this scene there, I want to make it clear to everybody, what hour is it there? Because we've seen the big parties in Rio. Of course, they're still in the running, but also still a pretty big fiesta going on in Madrid. But where you are, Kyung La, it's in the middle of the night. People were staying up, you know, hoping against hope. As you say, they knew they were the underdog. What time's it now?
I don't know if you can see my watch. It says 1:30 in the morning. So there were a lot of people who did gather in this small room to hope, and they were burning the midnight oil, hoping that there was going to be some good late night news so they could stay up and party all night. But that's just not the case. We have a lot of people now heading home to go back to bed.
All right. Kyung La, thanks a lot for being with us there. Our condolences to you and the beautiful city of Tokyo. Maybe next time. All right. Well, maybe we can take a look at some of these cities we're watching. Can we bring up a live picture here of Madrid? They're still partying. The hopes are still alive there. Look at this scene. You know, about 6:30 in the evening there in Madrid. People talking on their cell phones. The hope's still very much alive. They're going to know in a matter of minutes whether their city is chosen to host the Summer Olympic Games of 2016. And you can bet they're enthused. Now, can we bring up a picture? How's the party going down in Rio de Janeiro across the Atlantic? Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second. There we go. Right there on Copacabana Beach. A lot of enthusiasm there. South America, Brazil, neither the continent nor the country have ever hosted an Olympics. And they are hoping that this is the time they'll get their chance. We'll be back in a moment as we continue World Report. The champagne is chilling. The final pitches have been made, and one lucky city is about to find out in the next 30 minutes whether years of work and tens of millions of dollars has finally paid off. Let's go live to Copenhagen. Let's talk with Pedro Pinto and get the latest from there. Pedro.
Hey, Jim, definitely the sense of anticipation here is growing. The tension has been building all day long. There's about 15 minutes left until the IOC President, Jacques Rogge, will make the announcement we've all been waiting for. So much drama here already, a sense of disbelief when Chicago was eliminated in the first round of voting. In the second round, Tokyo also fell by the wayside, leaving Rio de Janeiro and Madrid, two cities, one Olympic dream. Will the IOC go into new territory in South America, or will they stay in Europe, where London is hosting the Games in 2012? We will find out pretty soon now, Jim.
All right, Pedro Pinto there as we follow events from Copenhagen. Everything has been closed now to the press, so, you know, Pedro can't see what's happening inside. We don't really know what the delegates are doing. Ceremony supposed to be beginning any second now, and we're going to turn to our own Terry Badu right here at CNN Center, and Christine Brennan, sports columnist from USA Today, live from Washington. Christine Brennan, ladies first. What are you expecting? You've got it down to 2. What do you think?
Well, it turns out, Jim, that the president who mattered to the IOC may well be Juan Antonio Samaranch, the former IOC president, not President Obama. Madrid, that was a very passionate appeal at the end of his speech, Samaranch's, where he said, I'm 89, I won't be around much longer, I'd love to see the games in Madrid. That was a real heart-tugger for a lot of IOC members who were put on the IOC, Jim, because of Samaranch. So that's one thing to consider. Rio, as you've said, South America, first time ever. Their presentation was fantastic because they showed a map. 30 times the Olympics Winter Summer Games have been in Europe, 12 times in North America, 0 for South America. So I think it's a toss-up. I also think, you know, everyone's talking about the shock in Chicago. I think we have seen how the political media here blew it. The IOC is so unpredictable. There is no group like the 100 members of the oldest of old boys clubs, doddering, aging. Some of them are probably falling asleep as they're voting. They think they're royalty. I know I'm being very critical, but this is a group that you just cannot predict. And Obama showing up, great job that he did, and Michelle Obama probably saved them from getting just even fewer votes. But this whole notion in the United States that this was going to change it, it was a done deal. just showed how much the U.S. media, in general, Jim, does not understand about the IOC. You can never, ever, I've covered this for 20 years, never predict what they're going to do, and they have really thrown us a curveball today.
Terry Badu, you know a little bit about the IOC as well. I mean, your thoughts on all of this. What kind of a chance do you think that Rio really has right now?
Well, I think it's ironic that it's Rio against Madrid in the Cup final, if you like, because these were the two bid cities who were slagging each other off in the lead up to the vote, which is, of course, against IOC rules, but it went on anyway behind the scenes, though I think each did apologise. But, you know, this is all about the people, as far as I'm concerned. The people of Rio really got behind their bid, even though, of course, they have all sorts of financial problems. There's problems with crime, etc., etc. They've really got behind it. You can see it's a party city there. It's kind of the Brazilian cliche, if you like. You've got the carnival, you've got the beaches, you've got the samba, you've got Sugarloaf Mountain. It's a spectacular venue. And I think that is really telling, because whenever you go to an Olympic Games, yes, you've got the sport. That's vitally important, of course. But there's all the other things, the cultural things that go on around it that make an Olympic Games. I think Rio has an awful lot going for it, possibly more than Madrid, although, of course, the sentiment may be with Madrid because they lost out to London for 2012. But it's obviously neck and neck, as it's been throughout the build-up to this vote, and I can't wait to see what happens.
None of us can wait to see what happens. Christine, you know, you talked a little bit about the way that the IOC operates in here. They're certainly building up a bit of the tension here. There's probably a lot of vote swapping going on here, because now all those cities that voted for Chicago or Tokyo are now freed up to lend their support to one of the others, or the other, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's a secret ballot, so it's not like the Iowa caucuses, as we may have been led to believe. They can do whatever they want. And I think, you know, passion is important. London, we know from 4 years ago, Jim, a lot of talk about Tony Blair and his 48 hours of whining and dining the IOC members. But the key element of the London bid and the presentation that day was passion. And there was Rio with the incredible passion of its president and that map, as I described. And then, Samaranch, oh my gosh, you cannot overestimate, in my humble opinion, the meaning of Juan Antonio Samaranch, president for 21 years, 89 years old now. You know, to say, for us to pick, you know, to say which one is it going to be, that's ridiculous in the sense of I might say, hey, if it was between Chicago and Rio, if Chicago had hung on, then I'd say Rio because of the passion of their bid. But this is a battle of two Latin titans, as you've said. It's a fascinating geopolitical high school student council election. It really is. And that's why you don't know, but I would say that do not underestimate Samaranch and that passionate appeal for Madrid. If they go with Madrid, they will have Olympics in Europe, London, Sochi, Russia for winter, and then Spain. That's a lot of Europe, back to back to back, and that's why maybe Rio, just because it's opening up a new part of the world. But this group has shown once again, the IOC has shown it's completely unpredictable, fascinating theater, and you just don't know. Obviously, Obama, who's now well over the ocean, it turns out didn't matter at all to them. How about
Christine,
that?
you're beginning to sound like you want a trip to Rio. Christine Brennan, one of the top sports columnists in the United States. Here, we're looking at a live picture, Christine, of the party still underway down on Copacabana Beach.
Right, and I think, Jim, you know, it's, well, we journalists, hey, you know, I went to Northwestern. My parents were from the south side of Chicago, so I would have loved to see Chicago pull it off as well. But you know, the bottom line is you have to have passion. I think the Chicago bid, Jim, as we saw in their presentation early this morning, was very efficient, but lacking focus. Chicago Tribune's Phil Hirsch said it lacked some focus. He's covered these a lot longer than I have, actually. And I think that's part of the problem for Chicago, because I know a lot of people are saying, how did Chicago go out in the first round? Hey, somebody had to go out in the first round, and it was going to be Chicago or Tokyo. You have to have enough votes to get through to the second round. And there was a fear among a lot of Americans. I talked to some of the Chicago bid people that they had to make sure they cobbled together enough votes for the first round. You knew Madrid had them. You knew Rio had them. Tokyo is the surprise that they went beyond the other round. But it's this stuff is just so much fun to cover. It's where sports and politics meet, Jim, and it really is fun.
It really is fun. Terry Badu knows that, one of our top international sports correspondents. Terry, you know, we're all watching these scenes, the parties in both cities. And of course, we've also got the video. Maybe we can bring that up of what's going on in Copenhagen right now. As we tick all of this down, you made an important point. A lot of this is really about the heart, the people.
Absolutely. I've been lucky enough to go to several Olympic Games. Barcelona 92, that really stood out for me. Of course, the sport was great, the setting was fantastic, but it was the way we were received by the Spanish people and the Catalans, if you like, in that region that really stood out to me. Similarly, in Sydney in 2000, the Australians really embraced us. Of course, Sydney is a picturesque city, great fun to be in, but the Australians really got into the whole spirit of the Olympic Games, which of course was something that Atlanta was criticised for back in '96, that it wasn't so heartily embraced. I mean, it's a tough call, this one.
Is called Poopy Cactus. The rest of the film is you.
That you have standing in the Olympic Stadium when you are so close to winning a gold medal, and it's just incredibly moving on every level. Every emotion is just racked, and it's fantastic scenes.
Because for the delegates now making this final vote, they've got a different decision than they thought they were going to be making for the final two, and they might have been making their minds up now really at the last minute, because they didn't expect to be choosing between Rio and Madrid, did they?
Well, I would have thought not. I mean, I thought it was hands down Chicago. They had the heavyweights out, you know, Oprah and both Obamas made fantastic presentations. I mean, they were, you know, Michelle and Barack Obama were just sensational. So very, very tense moments for those guys, those IOC members. I think, you know, it'd be interesting to see how they have voted once Chicago have gone out. And I don't know, if you were to ask me at this point, who do I favour? I think I'd say Rio.
I mean, obviously, out of these 4 candidate cities, 3 very disappointed cities by the end of tonight, how much planning goes into today to getting to this point?
Well, if I can just take you back to what my own experience is in Singapore. We were out possibly a week before we were due to go onto the presentation stand, and it was just, every day it was rehearsals. It was very meticulous, attention to detail, you know, just making sure that we were the best prepared and making sure that we would make no mistakes. Because at this moment, you don't want to be thinking, well, we could have done this, we could have done that. You want to be ready, poised and prepared.
But so much back work goes into it all, and getting all the facts and figures ready, the videos, all that sort of the issue. But also you've got the presentations on the day. There's always been this idea, hasn't it, that might swing the occasional vote. And yet, as you said, with Barack Obama turning up today, I mean, everyone was thinking that would pull a lot of votes in their direction. It didn't work.
Didn't work for them, but I think, you know, again, Tony Blair did magic. He was magic for us back in Singapore. And as you said, the VTs, the videos can make such a difference. And you know, once all the technical information is gone, you know, the legacy, the delivery, the infrastructure, it is about who speaks from the heart and who can deliver that message that we're all looking for of inspiration.
There's a big difference, Steve, you know, between Tony Blair's appearance and the President's appearance today. Tony Blair was there for what, about 3 days, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was there.
He was there, he was in that hotel room, and he saw almost anybody he could get to come and see him in the part of the London delegation. President Obama has come fairly last minute, and he's been there less than 24 hours, and I'm already hearing a reaction around some of the sporting world, people saying that may have counted against Chicago, that he came so late in the day and for such a short time that it was kind of too businesslike, and his heart didn't seem to be in it, and that might have swung votes the other way, mightn't it?
I think so. I think it's well possible, because you know you're having to massage the egos possibly of the IOC members. They've got a crucial decision to make, and I think you need to look into the whites of their eyes. You need to deal with them on a different level, and I think Tony Blair did a fantastic job.
You did say that a lot is based on the videos. The videos being shown in Copenhagen now. Let's have a quick listen in.
Right, don't we? Yeah. So she's got every chance.
last, but by no means least, and previously bidding for the Games of 1972 and 2012, it was the Spanish city of Madrid.
Madrid a déjà fait 2 propositions avant. Bienvenue à la capitale d'Espagne.
So that's a taste of the Madrid video there. You get a real sense of the excitement from both of those videos. And quick check on the crowds for you. They haven't got long to wait till they find out who is going to be the winning city for the Olympics in 2016. We'll bring you that decision in a couple of minutes.
They'll say
that tension is over. They have been knocked out. Now only 2 cities remain in the race. The voting has been completed. Somewhere not far from me there is an envelope which is sealed with the name of the city which has won the right to host the 2016 Olympics. Let me take you live now to the hall where in the next 5 minutes or so we are going to get the announcement as to which city has got the right to host the Games. Are the normal pleasantries? We're seeing a little bit of the highlights at the moment just from the voting which happened earlier, but it's very pertinent to show some of those pictures because the voting created a very large shock because Chicago, who have been the favourites throughout this race, were knocked out in the first round of voting, despite the presence of Barack Obama, who had become the first sitting US president to travel to an IOC Congress to address the IOC members directly to ask for their support to vote for his hometown, for Chicago. Now in 2016 it could well be the final year of Barack Obama's presidency if he wins a second term at the White House, but he is going to be having no farewell party in Chicago if that is the case, because he was turned down by the IOC, a real slap in the face for him. He had come to the IOC and said he wanted people to recognise that he was changing America, to show, I think, that this was in many ways, people thought, a referendum on the start of his presidency, an international referendum with many countries, of course, he hoped. Now, with the absence of President Bush, who might vote for an American city who wouldn't have voted for the United States before, but that wasn't the case. A little bit later on, we'll get the actual breakdown of the voting, of the votes, and we'll see. But you're seeing now the delegates from the 2 cities who are in the contest now. So that's Rio and also, of course, Madrid, because the way this works is a fairly brutal process. That the audience now is only made up really of the 2 cities which are left in the process. If you don't get through to the final 2, then to be honest, you're not really very welcome in the room. You have to go back to your hotel and watch it on television. An estimated, by the way, television audience of 1 billion people are tuning in to watch this ceremony right now. So many people are interested. We call the Olympics the biggest prize in sport. Let's now have a listen to what Jonathan Edwards, as you can see, the former gold medalist, is saying, as we will soon have the arrival of President Jacques Rogge, and then a bit later on, the opening of the envelope.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Olympic anthem.
I would like to thank the 4 candidate cities for their excellent bids and for their dedication to the Olympic Games. Your projects are of the highest quality. Your vision for the Olympic movement is inspiring. Thank you for your hard work, energy and commitment to sport and its values. Like in every competition, there can, however, only be one winner.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the envelope containing the result will be brought to the President by a young Danish athlete, the talented Signe Sjølund Pedersen, who will be competing in the very first Youth Olympic Games in Singapore next year.
This is the moment, that is the envelope.
I have the honor to announce that the Games of the 31st Olympiad are awarded to the city of Rio de Janeiro.
Well, there we have jubilation in the hall. Rio de Janeiro has become the first South American city to win the right to host the Olympics. Of course, jubilation for them, disappointment for Madrid. Madrid have run a fantastic campaign, beating the expectations of many to get to this final 2, but Rio have done it. The emotional pull, the President Lula of Brazil, who's been lobbying here for the last few days, saying this is Brazil's turn. This is going to be a decade of sport, of course, now for Brazil, which is hosting the Football World Cup in 2014, now the Summer Olympics in 2016. They have worked so hard, and just to put in perspective the scale of this achievement, when London won the right to host the 2012 Olympics, Rio did not even make the shortlist of 5. Rio was eliminated 1 year before the final vote by the IOC. The IOC didn't think at that stage Rio was a strong enough candidate. Now they have gone and beaten Barack Obama's home city, Chicago, Madrid with the support of Juan Antonio Samaranch Sr., the former president of the IOC, and Tokyo as well. Celebrations for Rio. And of course, you can imagine now what that means to the people in the room, because that is the president of the Brazilian Olympic Committee, Carlos Nuzman. I actually spoke to him when Rio knocked out a year out for the contest of 2012. He was very gracious in defeat. I'm sure he'll be very gracious in victory. Pelé, well, what an important role he has played, saying the one disappointment of his career was he hasn't been able to compete in an Olympics, because in the days when he was playing, professionals were not allowed to play football in the Olympics. Well, I'm sure he won't be playing in 2016, but he'll be taking a close involvement in that football tournament. There will be so much emotion in the room, because when you have worked for 4 years for one prize, there is simply no second best. There is a winner and there are 3 losers. There are no runners-up prizes. All the glory goes to one city. That city is Rio. And I think there will be many people within Olympic circles who will welcome the announcement that Rio is a winner. I think there had been some concern perhaps of European bias if Madrid was to follow London as another Olympic city, as another European Olympic city. So although there's disappointment amongst those Madrid members, those Madrid delegates who have worked so hard, they know that their time will come. Eventually there will be another European Olympics, and what Madrid has done here over the past few days will certainly put them in good stead to bid again to host an Olympics. But that won't be what's going through their mind right now. You can see already the Madrid delegation emptying out, but for those who have won the right to host the Games, it is a night of jubilation. Those are the scenes in Rio de Janeiro, of course, where the party, well, they love a party in Rio, don't they? And they know that this is going to be a party that's going to go all the way through to 2016, the Football World Cup, and then the Olympics. One of the world's greatest sports-loving nations is going to host the world's 2 biggest sporting events just 2 years apart. What a campaign they have run, actually led from a press perspective by Mike Lee, who spearheaded London's campaign. Another major victory for him, and in many ways this is a better victory for him than winning for London, because London was always seen throughout that process as a strong contender contender. When Rio first entered this race, not many people gave them much of a chance, but they have run such a good campaign. It was clear over the past few months that more and more IOC members were beginning to believe that, yes, Rio could put on a good games. And when you see the kind of imagery we're seeing now, but also the imagery from the big videos of Rio de Janeiro, it was very clear the kind of emotional pull that Rio had. The wonderful landmarks that no other city could possibly match. But let's cross live now to Rio and Gary Duffy.
Hello, and what a wonderful day for the people of Rio de Janeiro. There is absolute unbridled joy here on Copacabana Beach. The golden sand has disappeared in a sea of green and yellow. The traditional colours of Brazil, and this sport-loving nation is looking forward to an absolute feast of sport in the years ahead. When the announcement came in, there was always a bit of nerves, this apprehension that whether the Olympic organisers would have faith in Rio de Janeiro, but when the announcement came in, the silver glitter was released into the air. People jumped up and down, were dancing, singing and hugging, and I think the sensation here all the time was that this was South America's moment, that for the first time the games could come to South America, and that the doubts could be set aside about the funding of the Olympics, about the crime that undoubtedly plagues Rio de Janeiro. But this was this city's time and moment, and the people of Rio de Janeiro have been streaming out of their offices onto the beach, which is the focus of so much of life here. The party is fully underway, and it may last the whole weekend.
You know, Rio Carnival doesn't start for a few months. I think they might be partying all the way through to Carnival, but what a fantastic backdrop that is going to be for an Olympic Games. You can imagine the sailing in the harbour, the mountain biking, for example, the beach volleyball on Copacabana Beach. There is no doubt that Rio will make a magnificent setting for an Olympic Games. It's just the issues now which will have to be addressed are some of those mentioned by Gary Duffy. The crime, for example. Yes, Rio does have a problem with crime. They have addressed that during the bidding process. The IOC said they were content with that. Also a bit of a lack of hotel accommodation. They're going to put some cruise boats in the harbour to try to cope with that. But that's the winning city. What about the defeated city, Madrid? Such disappointment there, I'm sure. And Steve Kingston's for us there. Steve, sum up the mood in Madrid right now.
Well, the sun is setting over the Royal Palace and people are dejectedly streaming out of the square in front of it, Plaza de Oriente. So near and yet so far for Madrid, a city that was written off by the bookmakers and many commentators before today, simply because the 2012 games are coming to Europe, to London. Many people thought it was crazy for Madrid to believe that the games could come here again 4 years later, but they came close. They beat Chicago and Tokyo. They did better than anyone expected. And there was a bit of an axis, really, between Rio and Madrid. So some verbal sparring over the past 48 hours, but these were two really quite similar bids from big Latin cities that were offering a party Olympics. And I think if they were to be beaten by anybody, the Madrileños will be relieved and pleased that it's the Cariocas of Rio de Janeiro.
Steve, thank you very much indeed. Yes, they look despondent, but not too downhearted, the people in Madrid. Perhaps a sense of realism kicking in that, yes, Rio de Janeiro perhaps was the worthy winner, with the continent having never hosted an Olympics before. You can maybe hear above the sound of my voice. I think the party is already starting here as well in the hall in Copenhagen. I'm sure the Rio delegation are going to have a very late night here, but that is a story here from Copenhagen. The host of the 2016 Olympics is Rio de Janeiro.